What's good? What's good? What's good? You are not watching Drew Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph. Doing the solo dolo show. My boy Tarr left me hanging. Still my dog though. Word is bond. Word two. Check the mug, son. Check the mug, son. Let's bring it down. Adjust. There we go. Naruto. But just jump into it. If you want to do a podcast like what you're watching, music video, photo shoot, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fit Boxer. And if you want a genderless, clean energy, no crash energy drink, go on dubby.com, w.com. Use promo code JUKJuke for 20% off. And make sure you go subscribe at Juke Network. Like the He Say She Say channel, which will be soon changing over to Juke Network on Facebook as well. So make sure you go follow that one as well. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year, trying to get to 50 subscribers on Twitch as an individual. So make sure you go and follow me over there too at KYNGRALPH. And you can find me on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, @ an underscore for X or Twitter. And follow us at Juke Sports Show as well on Instagram as well. And we're getting into it, man. Joel Embiid gets into an altercation with a reporter who wrote a column or an article talking about Joel Embiid and his lack of effort and energy or lack of playing, I guess you could say. He took shots at the fact that he named his son after his brother who passed. And he pretty much said the way that he's operating is not really honoring his dead brother and his son, in which he said personally that everything he does is for them. And so Joel Embiid runs up on him. He gets a media pass. He's in the locker room doing interviews. Joel Embiid runs up on him. And so leads to the question, do you blame him or is he in the wrong? And I'm like, I don't think so, man. I think like for the last couple of years, and I think ultimately while I've been paying attention to like podcasting and media, I think it started with the Kobe Bryant passing and the way that was covered. It made me realize how the media doesn't always have the greatest integrity, whether that's sports media, news media, outlets, and whatnot. So ultimately, it's like one of them things where I don't blame them. I think that there's a line that can be crossed that shouldn't be crossed. And I think that, yes, take shots at me or talk about my job. If I'm a basketball player and you feel like I'm not playing and giving the organization everything I have on the court, I got it. But keep it on the court. And I feel like him using his brother, his younger brother who passed away 10 years ago, and his son to drive in a point is one of those things that I don't blame Joel Embiid for running up on him. Yeah, in the end, is that the professional thing to do? No, it is not. But at the same time, why is one able to do things that should not be allowed in a professional setting, and the other is villainized for it? So I don't get it. I don't like it. I think that ultimately a lot of media pundits get to say things that don't get checked. And when you do try to check it or you do try to speak on it, it's looked at like, oh, he's being sensitive. And I don't feel like that's fair. And so in the end, I don't blame Joel, man. I probably would have ran up on him too, the way talking about my kid and my brother that passed. Like, what you mean, bro? What you got going on? Like, yeah, at the end of the day, if I'm not playing, you're going to disagree with that. But I'm doing what I think is best in order for me to be able to play at the highest level during the playoffs. And I read the article. There were some other points that he had in it that I could see. But I think by the time I got to the article, they had taken the lines out that started this whole situation, where it was said that Joel Embiid punched him. But then it was like, no, from people that were there, it was like, no, he pushed him in his arm and was visibly upset. And so I don't blame him. I probably would have did the same thing you talked about my family. And so Dennis Allen and is fired by the New Orleans Saints. And Raiders fans, we got what we wanted. Luke Getsy has been fired. I've been calling for it for a couple of weeks now. And I'm excited. I'm happy. As a Raider fan, I think that this was the first step in improving the team in a way. Like, I feel like you got the coach. Antonio Pierce is the coach for you guys. You have some building blocks and pieces. Defensive coordinator has the defense playing well when the offense is comparable or at least competent, in a point where they're not leaving the defense on the field. If you can control time of possession and get back to the way that Antonio Pierce wants to play, I feel like this is the first step in that. So did they both deserve to be fired? Yes, they did. Luke Getsy, just to run off some stuff, 28th ranked total offense, 18th in passing offense, 31st in rushing offense, and 26th in scoring offense. And I think ultimately the way the one thing that kind of scares me about AP is the way that he wants to construct his offense, and I think that that kind of scares me. I think that in the end, Luke Getsy gets credit for something that would have happened without regardless of the offense, as long as you know how to pull the strengths out of your players. And the last 2 years, he's had first rushing offense, and second rushing offense. But that's with Justin Fields. At one point, you had David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Then the next year, you have Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields again with no David Montgomery. And you still have a potent rushing offense. And I feel like he's getting credit for something that when you have the talent, a quarterback with that type of talent when it comes to his legs, yes, obviously you're going to have a top rushing offense. So, like, why is he getting credit for that? And then going into it, you get rid of Josh Jacobs and you feel like Zamir White can do what Josh Jacobs was being asked to do. And no, that's not the case. And we've seen it. The rushing offense looks bad. He's been in and out of the lineup. They bring in Madison and free agency, and it's just not looking good. And so I called for it after week three or four, and I might have called for it in week two, honestly. Um, but I just didn't see this going the way that we needed to go. I think that with Antonio Pierce, you need an offensive coordinator who has. You needed a Cliff Kingsbury ultimately. You needed someone like that who is going to create an offense that is new, fresh, and way more modern. And I just don't feel like Luke Getsy is that. And the way that Antonio Pierce talks about the way his philosophy, it scares me a little bit because it just comes off a little bit too much of the old Raiders mentality and not enough. You need to be able to mix that as a culture, but then from an offensive and on the field standpoint, be a lot more modern. And those are the things that why I said first step, keep Antonio Pierce and make sure he goes nowhere. Set the culture for the organization. Get rid of Luke Getsy. Keep the defensive coordinator. Add some pieces and see what you can do. So we're 2-7 right now. 5-game losing streak. Luke Getsy got to go. So we got rid of him. Now this year's a wash. I'm sorry for all Raider fans. If you didn't already know this year's a wash. Hopefully we can get a top 3 pick, top 5 pick. I really want us to get Shador. Cam Ward is another person I would look out for. Balling out with Miami right now. The Raiders need a quarterback of the future, and then you can build from there. I feel like we already have certain pieces on the defensive side. Max Crosby. We brought in Christian Wilkins. We had Tyree Wilson from last year. Develop them, bring in some more pieces, and see what you can do. And Brock Bowers has been playing well. You got Michael Mayer. I believe in my mind, and you would need another wide receiver. I know you just got rid of Devontae Adams, but Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, we'll see, because I seen Jacoby Myers in trade talks, what happens as far as him staying with the team. But I do think that you have good pieces that you just need to develop and bring just a little bit more in and tighten up some certain spots. And I think the Raiders can be a wild card team next year. And so the cards got to fall in the right way in order for that to happen, though. But I can see it being at least you're not just going to be able to walk into Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium and be able to walk out of there with an easy victory going forward. As long as we can get that quarterback of the future, we'll be moving in the right direction. And so Dennis Allen as well, got to talk about him. 7-game losing streak. Saints go 2-0 to start the season. Ran off 7 straight losses, some really bad losses. In his tenure there, he's been 18-25, 1 playoff appearance, and I believe that's about 2.5 seasons. And I don't blame it, man. I think that him being a defensive guy, he might just end up being one of those coaches that is a good defensive coach and defensive coordinator, but he's just not a good head coach. And there's some people that are like that. Like we seen, like with Steve Spagnuolo went back to being a defensive coordinator and has flourished to the point where you don't even really see him get talks as far as being a head coach, but as a defensive coordinator, he's been legendary. He's probably going to end up being in the Hall of Fame for just being a defensive coordinator. And so I don't blame him. I'm curious to see what happens next. Derek Carr out there. That was my boy, bro. Like, this one sucks to say, but it's the end after this. I don't really see him being the starter next season. I think that him throwing, like the way he just did Chris Olave, I just don't see, and some of the tweets that I've seen from some of the players, I just don't see how he can keep his job as the starting quarterback for that organization. I think at this point he has to transition into being a journeyman, like an Andy Dalton type, or just be a backup and be a vet to a young quarterback. And so both of them, I think they deserve to be fired. Luke Getsy, he's gonna have to be a position coach at this point, or just relearn how to do all this all over again. But Dennis Allen, I think that in the end, Dennis Allen can be a very good defensive coordinator. So keeping the show moving, talking about NFL, and we are going in on the MVP conversation. Detroit and Jared Goff. Jared Goff got Detroit balling out of control, putting up points, crazy point differential. I think they're winning games by 2 touchdowns, which hasn't been done since I was in elementary school. And so then you got the Ravens. They got their 2-headed monster. It's hard to keep them out. I think, honestly, after that, there's not really too many people to really throw in there. In the end, it's a three-headed monster, a three-headed race. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Jared Goff are the MVP leaders. As we speak, I just don't see anybody that you can even throw in there right now. Josh Allen at one point, but had a stretch of games where he played really bad. And I just think he ended up taking himself out of the race. So to go through it, Derrick Henry in 9 games has 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. Lamar Jackson over 2,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 68 completion percentage. And Jared Goff, I didn't get a chance to really look up his, but when you watch the games, and this is one of the reasons why I brought this up last year when Cam Newton made the whole game manager versus game changer conversation. I understood what he meant by Jared Goff being a game manager, but there are moments that over the last 2-3 years, Jared Goff has showed that he's a game changer as well. I seen this stat going into last week that he has, I think the team has more touchdowns than he has incompletions since week two. And that stat is crazy because it's like 24 to like 20 incompletions. And so he's accurate with the football. He's getting into his playmakers. They got a double head, like a two-headed running back core with Gibbs and Montgomery. But Jared Goff has been willing and dealing. He's accurate, being able to use the play action when you have those running backs. And so for me, that's why I'm gonna go Lamar, because we've already seen Lamar play at a MVP level, but when it comes to being able to throw the football, this is where we're seeing the evolution of what Lamar Jackson could be. And right now, if you go and you look, put him, he's, oh yeah, and on top of that, he has about over 500 yards rushing. So right now, if you looked at his completion percentage per game or his stats per game, 68% per game, 264 passing yards a game, 56 rush yards a game, 2 touchdowns. And like I said, in 9 games, he has 2 interceptions. And these are those things that when you go and you look at how many games they got left, he could end up finishing off with over 4,000 yards and almost 1,000 yards, 4,000 yards and 1,000 yards rushing as well with 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Like at that point, that stat line right there alone is an MVP stat line. The only thing, though, is that at this pace, how close can Derrick Henry get to 2,000 yards? And I think that that's where it'll end up being. And I think it's interesting. I think sometimes with football is the one sport that, like in basketball, if like LeBron James is playing on the same team with Anthony Davis, they always talk about how they take MVP votes from each other. But in football, it doesn't necessarily go that way. I think in the end, unless Lamar Jackson has some crazy fall off, I could see where Lamar Jackson gets MVP and Derrick Henry gets Offensive Player of the Year, especially with the way that things go. Like he's already at 1,000 yards with 9 games. You take that, you give him about another 800 yards, 700 yards. If he stays healthy, you got over 1,600 yards, 1,700 yards, and 18 to 20 touchdowns. It's hard to see him not win. You can't just not give him something. So I can see it in a world where Lamar Jackson wins the MVP and Derrick Henry ends up winning the Offensive Player of the Year. And so them Cowboys, man, I got a question for them from Cowboys fans. Y'all still them boys, because it's looking rough. And it's funny when you really have conversations with like Raiders fans versus Cowboys fans. I just feel like Cowboys fans have this delusion that I admire from a fan standpoint. I think that like really truly believing the dedication that it takes to really believe that you have a chance at a Super Bowl every year is crazy. When you haven't won anything. So I turned 35 on Saturday. I think I might have been 6 the last time that the Cowboys won anything significant. And every year they just genuinely believe that it's their year. And you gotta have some kind of hope. But to get into it as from an analyst standpoint, how do the Cowboys right the ship? Honestly, you have to get rid of Mike McCarthy and address some genuine needs for your team. When you knew going into this year you needed a running back, It's been documented Derrick Henry that works out in Dallas in the offseason. You don't even attempt to try to bring him in, and look at what he's doing with Baltimore. So that's one thing. They should have had a run game. You got CD. There's some people that you could have went out and get the Calvin Ridleys, certain people you could have traded for, wide receivers you could have tried to draft, and they don't bring anybody on the other side of CD. They lose Dalton Schultz to the Texans last year. They don't even really replace that. Then from a defensive standpoint, they're not healthy. Micah hasn't played. Dexter Lawrence hasn't played. You got Trayvon back. Not Branch. Dang, I can't think of my boy. He had all them pick. Bland. I think it was Deron Bland has been out for large portions of the year. I don't even think he's played yet. So there's injuries that need to be had, but there's also a cultural shift that needs to change. Ultimately, honestly, Jerry Jones needs to give up that GM role, but since he's not going to do that, Mike McCarthy got to go. I think Mike McCarthy, he gets in. Kellen Moore has a good offense. They're putting up points. They're moving the ball. The offense is working. He feels like they're throwing the ball too much. So he pushes him out the door. Now he's the play caller. He's doing the same shit that he just fired Kellen Moore for last year, but now you're probably running the ball a little bit. I mean, throwing the ball a little bit more. If last year it was 60-40, now you're damn sure at 70-30. Then you get rid of any kind of weapons that could have threw the ball to. You signed him for all this money. And I'm going to get into it in a little bit. The trade that you get where D-Hop was traded for a 7th round pick. You traded for a second-year player for a 4th round pick who I don't see him even being close to what D-Hop has been right now for the Chiefs. And there's certain things that they do, they just don't make sense. They have to be able to address some of their position players, address the coaching situation, and get some young talent in there and get a running back. And so with the time I got left, I'm going to go through this 2-minute drill. So I'm watching the Gilbert Arenas, Gil's Arena, and they're talking about athleticism. They're talking about the number 1 pick, talks about how in France when he played, he felt like he was the most athletic person on the court. Here, he just feels like he's just one of the guys when it comes to athleticism. So they start talking about having a conversation of, can you build? Is athleticism something that can be worked on? And like a skill, is it a skill that it can be worked on? And I say it's something that can be worked on, but it's not a skill that can be improved from just being in the gym. I feel like at the end of the day, if you got it, you got it. Like Derrick Rose and Ja Morant from the not quarterback, but point guard position, there's athleticism that they have that other people they're not going to have that. Yes, can you get in the gym, get stronger, get a little bit more explosive? Yes, you can. But are you going to go – you can probably at max raise your vertical 3 to 5 inches. You're not going to go from a 20-inch vertical to a 35-inch vertical from just simply being in the gym. And those are the things that where I feel like when the conversation that was being had, I can see where the discrepancy was. And I just feel like athleticism is not a skill that can be improved just from simply being in the gym. Either you have it or you don't. Your max is going to be different than my max. And that's ultimately what the nature of the conversation is. And when it comes to these young players coming into the league, take a page from like a Luka. Luka doesn't have crazy athleticism, but he knows change of pace, shooting, footwork, and just the fundamentals of the game where he's able to pick his spots and be able to be effective without having LeBron-type athleticism. or even Anthony Edwards type athleticism. And so I don't think it's the end all be all, but I do think that athleticism is not necessarily a skill that can be improved from just being in the gym. And so women's basketball is back. Paige Beckers. I want to say Buchers so bad, but I keep seeing people say Paige Beckers, so I'm assuming that's the correct way to say her last name. She balled out. Juju is back with her top bun, balling out. So it leads. Haley Van Lith is about to make her debut with TCU. So it leads you to who is the best player in women's college basketball. And the way, if she can cut down on turnovers, it should be a UConn USC final in the end. But Juju, to me, I really wasn't trying to just jump on that ship, that bandwagon too early when she was a freshman. No, she was balling out. She had a heck of a year. But her ability to get to the rim, mid-range, three, as long as she can get her teammates involved and cut down on turnovers, I think Juju is easily the best basketball player, women's basketball player in the country. And I can see it in the next. She's a sophomore. Next 3 to 5 years, she'll end up being the best women's basketball player. Period. I think she has the size of an Angel Reese. She has the dribbling and ball handle of a guard. I ain't gonna say like Caitlin Clark, but she has she's 6'2", so she has the size of a WNBA 4, but also she plays like a guard. So that combination of size, athleticism. Now she has the tenacity to get out there on defense, and I think in her first game back against a really good team too, she had 5 blocks, 4 assists, 27 points, 10 rebounds. Like, I think at this point, she has all of the tools to be able to do it. It's just whether or not she can put them together. And from a team standpoint, can the rest of the team at least match her intensity and be able to really be able to get it done? We've seen UConn. UConn's going to be in it no matter what, it seems like, as long as everybody's healthy. So we'll see what happens going forward. But I think that Juju is definitely the best player in the country, although Paige Beckers is going to end up being the number 1 pick, given that she's healthy. And so I got one quick one. So there are a few trades that happened today before we go ahead and get up out of here. Marshawn Lattimore traded to the Washington Commanders. Mike Williams traded from the Jets to the Steelers. Zadarius Smith traded to the Lions. Jonathan Mingo traded to the Cowboys. Tre'Davious White traded to the Ravens. And Khalil Herbert has been traded to the Bengals. Which move is the most important? And Zadarius Smith, man. I think that Zadarius Smith, this move kind of reminds, not to the ilk of like Von Miller, how good Von Miller was, but what Von Miller gave to the Rams was a closer. This is somebody that, when it comes down to it, double team, single with a chip, Zadarius Smith is someone that can close a game for you. And him going to the Lions after they lose Aiden Hutchinson, that offense that they have, defense playing very well. I think when it comes down to it, this move gives you someone that long down the road, right now, we're first week of November, there's a world where Aiden Hutchinson might be able to come back in time for the playoffs. And that's the thing that this move makes that move scary. He comes back healthy. Zadarius Smith on the other side, and what he's able to do, you're not going to be able to double team both. And ultimately, this move is for the Lions, not for just the first or second round, the regular season. This move is for NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, because you can run up against Jalen Hurts, you can run up against Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson, or you can run up against Patrick Mahomes. And so in the end, this move and the pass rush that Zadarius Smith creates alone is one of those things that this is the reason why you make this move in the end. And so it kind of makes it a little scary. If you had a conversation with me sports wise, Raiders season is over. So I am a Ravens fan. And so if Aiden Hutchinson doesn't come back, I'm not that afraid. But if he does in a Super Bowl situation, because I do genuinely believe this is the year that Lamar gets to a Super Bowl, given that everybody stays healthy. But no Aiden Hutchinson, I feel like we can get it. If Aiden Hutchinson comes back, that's where I'm a little afraid because they're able to put up points. And the one thing that the Ravens are struggling with right now is getting after the quarterback, which is why that Tre'Davious White move didn't necessarily make the most sense. I get it. Character guy, locker room guy, vet, who's decent, and you're not expecting him to be a number one or number two guy. Come in, play the slot, real good zone, teach Nate Wiggins, be another vet next to Nate Wiggins with Marlon Humphreys in there. But you struggle with a pass rush, which is why I just didn't understand why we didn't at least go after somebody. Kyle Van Noy coming off the couch. Owe is so inconsistent. Madubuike, since he got his contract, is winning the witness protection. And this is why it's like, but Lamar's playing at such a level that it's just hard to see them lose in a meaningful game. And so thank you all for watching. I actually hit a milestone. I had the most people watching at one time that I've had while having this show. So I appreciate you all for support. But like I mentioned before, make sure you go like, subscribe, comment, share, subscribe on YouTube. Juke Network, JUK Network. Make sure you go follow the new Facebook page, Juke Network as well. And until I can hit 100 followers and on that page, I won't be able to go live from there. So for now, make sure you go follow for any updates, content, shorts, clips, until I completely switch over to Juke Network. Make sure you go follow the He Say, She Say channel. Follow us on Instagram at Juke Sports Show, JUK Sports Show on Instagram. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Instagram. Follow me on Twitch because I am trying to get to 50 followers by the end of the year. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. So subscribe at Juke Network. Once again, thank you all for watching. And I'm out of here. I'm out of here.